Okay. We are at 12:05, so we are going to go ahead and try to get started here. Thank you, everybody, for joining us today and registering for the Affordable Housing Retrofit Accelerator 101 webinar. We're really excited to have you here to talk to you a little bit about building energy performance standards and the Affordable Housing Retrofit Accelerator. So we'll get started with the agenda for today. So we'll first start off with some welcome and introductions. We'll have some presentations from DOE about what it means to not meet the BEPS, basic understanding of the Affordable Housing Retrofit Accelerator, meeting the partners who are partnering with DOE on this Affordable Housing Retrofit Accelerator, a detailed overview of the accelerator itself, an intro to the DC Green Bank, who's one of the partners, and then at the end, we will be doing a Q&A session with all of you in 3 breakout rooms. We would ask that you hold your questions until the end. If you do have any questions that you want to provide ahead of time, please drop those right into the team's chat, and we will make sure that we collect those as we get into the breakout rooms. So I will now introduce Ted Trebu, who's the Managing Director of the DCSEU, who will provide a welcome and some introductions. Thank you.
Ben, thank you very much, and good afternoon, everyone. And to those of you who may be on Central or Western time, good morning. My name is Ted Trebu, and for over 10 years now, I've been the Managing Director of the District of Columbia Sustainable Energy Utility. The DCSEU is proud to partner on these initiatives with the Department of Energy and Environment and the DC Green Bank. But I just want you to know that we bring a wealth of experience and expertise to the energy solutions that we are trying to provide for your buildings. The DC Sustainable Energy Utility is a part of a larger company, BEIC, which is a 35-year-old 501c3 nonprofit that has driven energy solutions and designed energy efficiency and renewable energy programs in Vermont, Ohio. We have offices in California and Wisconsin. In fact, we've done work in about 38 states over the last 35 years. So we're very, very happy to be partnering today with the Department of Energy and Environment and the DC Green Bank. I'm going to introduce Katie Burkfeld and Jessica Brayland from the Department of Energy and Environment, who are going to be walking you through the beginning of the conversation this afternoon. And I'm so happy to have Katie presented today. Katie's been working with us, gosh, Katie, for well over half a decade now with the Department of Energy and Environment. And so it's so glad to have her, and Jessica, who is newer to the organization, but brings a wealth of experience from having worked right next door in the Commonwealth of Virginia. So Katie and Jessica, I'm gonna let you guys take it away. Thank you very much. Let me thank over 70 registrants who have agreed to join us this afternoon, and it's a very, very exciting launch for us this afternoon. Thank you.
Thank you, Ted. Yeah, it'll be 7 years in January, so.
Yeah, we've been working together for a while.
Yeah. Hi, everyone. My name's Katie Burkfeld. Pronouns are she, her, hers. And I am the branch chief for building performance and enforcement at the Department of Energy and Environment, which is an agency in the government of the District of Columbia. And so essentially what we're going to do now is I want to echo Ted's comments that we're really excited to have you all here. We're really excited to walk you through this program and what it's going to be offering you, and start talking with you all about how we can best help you and assist you. I'm going to go through sort of the background on the regulatory side of things. So I get to talk about the not so fun stuff. And then I'm going to hand it off to Jessica, who's going to give you a quick overview of what the accelerator is from sort of a high level. So you can go to the next slide. Just to set the context a little bit, we want to make sure that everyone sort of understands what the goal is of the Building Energy Performance Standards program. And so here at DOE and in the district, we all operate under the Sustainable DC vision, which is to make DC the healthiest, greenest, most livable city in the country for all district residents. And you can go to the next slide. And to support that vision, we have lots of different plans and goals. The one most germane to the conversation today is that we're looking to cut our greenhouse gas emissions citywide by 50% by 2032. So this is a goal that's set forth in the Sustainable DC plan. And that plan lays out goals for lots of different things across the district. And so like I said, the one that we're going to focus on today is the idea that we're trying to cut citywide greenhouse gas emissions by 50% by 2032, and then eventually trying to become zero carbon by 2050. You can go to the next slide. So the first question that I think a lot of people might think in their head is, yeah, we're trying to cut greenhouse gas emissions by 50% by 2032, but there are lots of things that contribute to greenhouse gases in the district. But you can see here that the biggest source of greenhouse gas emissions in the district are our buildings. So about 75% of the greenhouse gases in the district come from our buildings. And so in order for us to get to that 2032 goal, we really have to focus in on the efficiency of our buildings. And I'm talking about not just our new construction buildings, I'm talking about our existing buildings. Most of the buildings in the district obviously are existing and have been there a long time. Although there is a lot of new development going on in the district, we really do need to address the efficiency of our existing buildings. So you can go to the next slide. Which brings us to some action that DC Council took a few years ago to address that specific issue. In 2018, DC Council passed the Clean Energy DC Omnibus Amendment Act of 2018. So this legislation essentially took pieces out of our Clean Energy DC plan, which is our climate action plan, and sort of put them into law. And so the two main things that happened in that legislation that we're going to focus on today are the fact that council lowered the minimum square footage for buildings that are required to benchmark or track their energy and water usage and report that to us on an annual basis. And then they established a first of its kind building energy performance standards. So we're the first in the country to have a policy addressing the efficiency of our existing buildings and requiring those buildings to actually make efficiency upgrades over time. So this is just, again, the legislation that council passed back in 2018, and now DOEE is implementing that legislation. You can go to the next slide. So the foundation for the Building Energy Performance Standards Program, or BEPS, as we will refer to it today, is our benchmarking law. And our benchmarking law, as we colloquially call it, was established through the Clean and Affordable Energy Act of 2008, which requires all privately owned and DC-owned buildings to report their energy and water usage on a calendar year basis. And they have to submit that to DOEE by April 1st of every year. This law has been in place again since 2008. We've effectively been collecting data on buildings 50,000 square feet and above for about 8 or 9 years now, and all of that data is published on our website. The thing to note from the Clean Energy DC Omnibus Act that sort of changed this legislation is that now smaller buildings are going to be required to start reporting data to us. Most specifically, the next reporting deadline is April 1st, 2022, where the calendar year 2021 data, so the year we're in right now, will be due to DOEE. And this, wave of reporting will now include smaller buildings down to 25,000 square feet. So if any of you on the line have buildings between 25,000 and 50,000 square feet, you're going to want to make sure that those buildings are tracking their energy water usage in Energy Star Portfolio Manager and reporting that to the district. I will not be getting into a lot of detail on that, but you can certainly reach out to us if you need any assistance on that. For most of the folks on the line here, you are owners, managers of multifamily properties. And the thing that you need to note is that with multifamily properties, we require whole building utility data, which includes both the residential and non-residential portions of your building. So this includes the residential tenant areas. And we also have a process by which building owners can request aggregate whole building data from the utilities to help meet that requirement. If anybody needs help with that, they can also reach out to us. You can go to the next slide. So again, as I stated, the BEPS program, the Building Energy Performance Standards Program, is sort of based on that data that we've been collecting through the benchmarking program. And so through the Clean Energy DC Omnibus Act of 2018, basically council required that DOEE set a minimum threshold for energy performance. So this isn't just a reporting requirement anymore. This is now DOEE taking all of that data and looking to see sort of what a what a good minimum threshold of energy performance would be by property type. And when I say good, that has been defined as no lower than the local median Energy Star score by property type. So anybody who's not familiar with Energy Star, essentially buildings can receive a 1 to 100 score to sort of tell you how efficient your building is compared to other buildings of a similar type. And so DOE has taken all of that data, and we have essentially looked to see what is the median energy performance. And anybody who is not hitting that median energy performance is now going to be required to make efficiency improvements in their buildings over time. And I'll get into a little bit more detail in the next slides. I also want you all to be aware this is not a one-time thing. So we are also required to set these standards every 6 years. We set the first standard on January 1st, 2021, so nearly a year ago. So the standards have been established. Buildings that are not meeting those standards have been informed. So most of you on the line probably have buildings that are not meeting that standard, and you should have been informed of that by now. So you can go to the next slide. This slide is just mostly for reference. I'm not going to go through this. I want you all to have this for your reference after this presentation, but this sort of goes through the different metrics that you should be aware of when you're moving through the BEPS program, because these are the metrics that DOE is going to be using to track your compliance through the program. And I mentioned the Energy Star score, but I'm happy to answer more questions about that later. You can go to the next slide. So just to give you a sense of how the process works, break it down very, very simply. So the owner benchmarks the building. DOE has established these standards, which we did on January 1st, 2021. We then take your benchmark data and we compare you to that standard. And we ask the question, does the building meet the standard? Yes or no? You can see on that top sort of circle, it says the building does meet the standard, which means they have no regulatory requirements. So if the building meets the standard, they don't have regulatory requirements, but they will be evaluated against the next standard that is set in 6 years. Moving on to a building that does not meet the standard, basically we look and we look at your data that you submitted to us, we compare it to the standard, building does not meet the standard, it will be entered in what we're calling a compliance cycle. And I will talk about in a minute what a compliance cycle is and what your requirement is. You can go to the next slide. So again, I'm going to sort of break this down in real time. So I mentioned before, you benchmarked your building, DOE set the standards. This is sort of what the standards look like. This is basically what it looks like in the regulations where we establish the standards, as well as published on our website. The top 4 buildings that are highlighted there are the most common property types in the district. Across the top, you can see that the standard for multifamily was an Energy Star score of 66. So go to the next slide. So working again through that process, we set it so you benchmarked your building. We set a standard of Energy Star score of 66, and then now it's kind of your job and our job to figure out if your building met that standard and what to do after that. So here's a good example. Multifamily buildings, 150,000 square foot. So BEPS does apply to that building because it's over 50,000 square feet. The Energy Star score for that building was a 72. So as you remember, the standard was a 66. You benchmarked at a 72, which means your building meets the standard. What that means is for this first BEPS period, that 6-year period, you're not regulatorily required to do anything, right? Next slide. Now, I think this will be more applicable to most of the people in this room. So let's take a look at another example. Your multifamily building is 80,000 square feet. Again, it's over 50,000 square feet, right? So BEPS applies. The Energy Star score reported to DOE was a 40. So since the standard's a 66, your building's at a 40. Your building does not meet the standard. And so now we'll talk a little bit about, we'll just sort of overview of what the options are for that building. So this building does not meet the standard and will be required to do something and have regulatory requirements to DOE. Next slide. So what we mentioned before, we place that building on a compliance cycle. The compliance cycles are essentially established as a 5-year period in the legislation for you to do something in your building to increase the efficiency. It's been extended by a year due to COVID. This slide just gives you a sense of what those actual years are and when things will be due to DOE. You can see the final compliance reports will be due to us April 1st of 2027. Next slide. I'm not going to get into detail on all the compliance pathways, but I want you all to be aware that there are options. So there are options for building owners to comply. The most significant one to be aware of, because the other ones are kind of based off of that, is reducing the site energy use by 20%. So that's called the performance pathway. So building owners that choose that pathway essentially are going to be required to reduce their energy usage by 20% over that 6-year period that I just mentioned. And I also want to mention that for multifamily affordable housing specifically, DOE has built in a lot of flexible compliance options for all of you. And through this process, through the accelerator process, DOE and DCSEU will be very involved with you, as well as other partners like DC Green Bank, to ensure that you understand what your options are and that you're able to make the right decision for how you want to comply and to meet our requirements. Next slide. Okay, so this is the not so fun part, but you know, whenever you pass a new ambitious policy, it has to be enforceable. And so there are some alternative compliance penalties that are established in the legislation, and we want to be fully transparent and make sure that you all are aware of that. And so there are potential penalties if you don't meet your pathway target. However, the goal of this program and any program that DOE has is not to make money. We're not here to make money. We are here to reduce greenhouse gases in your building. So we want you to be successful. And Jessica will talk about in a minute what we're doing to help you be successful. But we do want you to be aware that there is a maximum penalty associated with this program of $10 per square foot. So if a building doesn't meet their pathway target, they could be subject to a $10 per square foot penalty. And that penalty will be adjusted proportionately based on how close you get to your pathway target. So a quick example is that the building was required to make a 20% improvement in energy efficiency over that 6-year period. Let's say we get to the end of the 6-year period and the building only achieves a 10% improvement. That penalty would be automatically reduced by 50%. So again, this is just an illustrative example to tell you all sort of how that penalty process works. We are here to make sure that you do not get penalties. We are here to make sure that you meet those pathway targets and you improve the efficiency of your building. And I'll hand it off to Jessica now to talk about how.
Thank you so much, Katie. So I will just jump right in with an overview of the Affordable Housing Retrofit Accelerator. So this is a joint effort between DOEE, the DCSEU, and the DC Green Bank, with the DCSEU primarily as the day-to-day program manager for implementation. So with the help of federal stimulus funds, this is the right slide. Yep. So with the help of federal stimulus funds, we are pulling together financial and technical resources to help improve building efficiency and help building owners comply with the building performance and regulatory requirements of the BEPS that Katie had just described. Next slide. So for eligible buildings that apply by January 15th, the accelerator will provide financial assistance for energy audits, retro commissioning, and the installation of new energy efficient building equipment, and also provide access to low-cost construction loans from the DC Green Bank. And the accelerator also will provide one-on-one technical guidance for understanding the BEPS regulatory requirements and deadlines. So if you didn't catch everything Katie said, we're there to help. Also help uncover energy savings opportunities in your building, develop an action plan to improve energy performance, and really importantly, cut energy costs and run the building more efficiently and reduce greenhouse gas emissions. Next slide. So this was mentioned earlier, but in order to be eligible for accelerator assistance, you have to be a multifamily building over 50,000 square feet that does not meet the 2021 BEPS. And that is specifically an Energy Star score of less than 66 in calendar year 2019. The building also has to meet the definition of affordable housing, which is included here for reference. And the DCSEU will support building owners in verifying that they meet this definition. So we've already, through research and public documents, identified about 100 buildings that we think meet these criteria in the district and are eligible, potentially eligible for the accelerator. And we have already reached out at least one time to those building owners. So if you are a building owner here, you've probably gotten contacted about us. So that means you. So we're really excited that you're here and we look forward to supporting you. Next slide. So what are the next steps for building owners? They should register and attend Accelerator 101, which is today. Check, you are here, you've taken the first step. They should register in the owner portal, which is going to be coming soon, and we will follow up with a link to the owner portal. The portal will let the owner see everything for their building, including its BEPS and benchmarking status. And it's also where the owner will be uploading reporting documents throughout the BEPS compliance cycle. They will also need to complete an energy audit application and verify affordability requirements are met with the DCSEU by January 15th, 2022. And here's a link to the DCSEU website where the owner can find that application. Buildings that complete their application by January 15th will be prioritized for FY22 accelerator funding. We may be able to provide assistance for those that applied later, but that'll be after we see how much funding is left following the assessments of the buildings that did apply on time. Next slide. So this is, if you click on that link at the website that you can go to find the application. Next slide. And here's the timeline that we see ahead for the rest of the fiscal year. So if you look in November, we completed a soft launch and did some targeted outreach to buildings that we think are eligible. A lot of you probably got an email from us at that time. We're continuing outreach efforts. We sent out a press release on December 8th. We have Accelerator 101 today, December 15th. And the DCSEU is supporting building owners in completing their application, and we've even started a few energy audits. So in January, we'll start to wind down outreach efforts for fiscal year 22 and start turning even more heavily towards implementation. We'll have another Accelerator 101 like this for anyone that missed today's session. We'll be doing more energy audits, perhaps even starting to meet with some of the building owners to discuss the results of the audits and recommended energy efficiency measures for their buildings. So that'll continue for the next few months with more energy audits, really moving into the installation of some of those energy efficiency measures. And then towards the end of the summer and into September, we'll start lining up projects for implementation in FY23. So in summary, the Building Energy Performance Standards, BEPS, that Katie described earlier, are the regulatory program that establishes a minimum level of energy performance for all buildings in DC over 50,000 square feet. And so this Affordable Housing Retrofit Accelerator is a voluntary program to help building owners of affordable housing improve building performance, meet BEPS reporting and requirements and deadlines, and avoid any penalties for noncompliance, and start seeing savings from cutting your energy costs. So by completing your application by January 15th, you can start to receive assistance right away. And you may even be eligible to receive assistance continuing into FY23. One important thing is that this is federal stimulus funding, so we only have these funds for the next few years. So we really encourage you to apply soon. So now I want to, next slide. And that's our contact info. Next slide. I want to introduce two key partners of the Affordable Housing Retrofit Accelerator that are going to be speaking next. First is Christian Placencia, Manager Programs with the DCSEU. The DCSEU is the primary implementing partner managing the accelerator, who building owners will be interfacing with on day-to-day implementation, like completing the application process, setting up the energy audits, overseeing contractors that'll be installing new equipment in buildings. And then after Christian will be Gary Decker with the DC Green Bank to talk about their offerings. So with that, I'll hand it over to Christian.
Awesome. Thank you, Jess. Hi, everyone. My name is Christian Placencia, and I'm a program manager at the DCSEU. And I have been working with the folks at DOE, the Green Bank, a lot of other teaming partners, and Patty, who's also a big part of the team. She's not speaking today, but she is here to give color commentary. So Patty, feel free to chime in if anything comes up. But I will be echoing a lot of what Jess actually already said, but just giving a little bit more detail about the program and then our role in the DCSEU and how we can help you through it. Next slide, please. All right, so the agenda for me today is just kind of give a high-level overview of the program. get a little bit more in detail about our income verification requirements, because I know we mentioned that we gave the definition of what income qualified means, but what does that actually mean? So I'll be going over that. I'll be giving a detailed program overview, just like a step-by-step of what you should expect if you go through the program, and then talk about our funding prioritization, what you can do, and then I'm going to pass it over to Gary after that. So next slide, please. All right, so like Jess mentioned, the affordable the ARB program is a 5-year stimulus funded program, where we're working with folks that are not BEPS compliant, income qualified, and have a building over 50,000 square feet. And we want to work with you on how to get you to become BEPS compliant. And there's a few steps to get there. And today I'm going to be talking about a little bit more of what that takes. So go to the next slide, please. All right, so I know we gave the definition of what a building is to be income verified or income qualified. So it is folks that are that have 50% of their units are 80% of AMI, and so we're not expected to get income documentation from every single unit. So the way that we do it is we acquire rent rolls from folks that think that they meet this criteria. And so in the bottom area that's highlighted in yellow, we've highlighted what the different rent limits are for the different size of units. And so that's what we review when we're verifying your building. So if you go to the next slide, we have a little bit more detail about what the rent roll has to include. So a rent roll has to have the apartment number, the number of bedrooms, the month, like how much the rent is charged for it, if the unit is subsidized or if it's a full payment. So whatever the rent amount that's on there, we want to know if, sometimes folks have their rent subsidized. We want to know if that's what the resident is paying, or if it's, if they have some assistance with that. We want to know the name of the property manager, the owner, obviously the property address, the date of the submission. We just want to know that it's a recent rent roll, and we also need a signature from the folks that are submitting it. Next slide, please. All right, so this is a really high level overview of the program. So like Jess mentioned, a lot of the folks have been contacted already, either through them or through us, about that your building has been identified as potentially being eligible for this program, but you still have to apply. So we think that you're eligible, but we still have to vet your building. If you have not been contacted by DOE or by us, that doesn't mean that your building doesn't qualify. That just means that we, from our initial kind of overview, didn't identify your building as being eligible, but you can still apply. So the link that Jess put up before, and the link that we have on our webpage, you can actually submit your information and let us know, like, hey, maybe one of my buildings was qualified, but I didn't get information or get notified about another building that I have. Does it qualify? And we will send you some information as to what the next steps you can take to have your building included as part of the program. And we would review your rent roll using the criteria that I discussed before, and we'll send that information over to DOE, and they will let us know if your building can in fact be included into the program or not. Once your building has been verified and we see that it is income qualified, it's above 50,000 square feet, and it's not BEPS compliant, we'll send you an application and then ask you to submit some documents. So these documents are related to the building. They're mostly for the energy auditor. It's information that's really helpful for them before they go through the walkthrough. So we'll just review that information to make sure that all the documents have been signed properly, make sure that we acquire all the documents that we need for the auditor. And once we have that information from you, we will then assign you to an auditor. So the auditor will reach out to you and they'll set up a date to actually conduct a walkthrough. For us, we would request that you have somebody on site that has access to all the different areas of your building. I mean, we would hate for the auditor to go and not have access to all the different spaces. So we just ask that you have that. So the auditor will collect information, come up with an ASHRAE level 2 audit, and then that information gets sent over to the DCSEU. So we actually have engineers on staff that'll review your audit and make sure that the calculations and everything looks correct according to our energy saving kind of process that we have. And then once we have the audit, we'll set up a meeting with you to figure out what is the best pathway for you to become BEPS compliant. So I know that Jess And Katie talked about a couple of different ways that you can get there. So that's where that meeting will happen, is where we look at your audit, we see what's going on in your building, we see how far off you are from BEPS, and then we work out a plan with you of, okay, what's the best way to get there? Once we have the plan or your BEPS pathway selected, then we get to the fun part of it. Essentially, it's the action plan. So what exactly do you want to do? So that's where we can connect you with contractors to actually go out and get bids to figure out what types of projects you want to tackle this year or next year, or just create an overall plan with you and figure out, the funding for it as well. So if you go to the next slide, I get into a little bit more detail about that. So like Jess mentioned, we do want projects to be submitted by January 15th. Those are the projects that we're going to focus on. Those are the projects that we really want to figure out how to get them to BEPS compliance. So I would please encourage you to apply before then and send your documents over. If you have any questions about it, please let us know. But once we get your information, like in terms of the audit, and figure out what you want to do, your pathway, then we can start figuring out this is what the DCSEU or through this program can fund for you to get you to BEPS compliance. So we can evaluate all the different potential in your building. And these are some of the criteria that we'll be looking at in terms of determining how much funding to give each building. I mean, I know some of these buildings are really old and there's a lot of money that can be invested in there for a lot of different things. But for us, we're looking for energy savings and to get you BEPS compliant. And these are the things that we look for when trying to determine the funding. You go to the next slide. So what can you do right now? So again, if you have not been contacted by us already, please go to our website, submit your information. Even if you are not eligible for this program, we still can work with you through the DCSEU. We work with all the buildings in DC. If you're interested in upgrading any of your equipment or anything like that, we can offer technical assistance and rebates. But for this specifically, we are working with, again, the criteria of above 50,000 square feet, income qualified, not BEPS compliant. But if you do not meet that, we can still work with you on that. So even if you send your documentation over to us, we can utilize that information to work with some of our other programs that we have at the DCSEU. Does anybody have any questions about what I just said? If not, we can move on to the next slide, where it just has the contact information for the rest of our team. So again, I'm Christian Plasencia. We have Patty Boyd on the call as well. I believe Patrice Brooks is also on the call. She's our account manager. So she's been doing a lot of the outreach to some of these folks already. And so, and even folks that are not a part of this program, we've been forwarding them over to Patrice so that she can work with them through our SETF program. So Patty or Patrice, I don't know if there's anything you want to add or clarify from what I just said, but feel free to do so. No.
Did a great job, Christian. Thanks.
Yeah,
Thank you,
that was
Patrice.
great, Christian. And in the breakout rooms, we can hopefully answer some questions.
Awesome.
Hey, Christian,
well,
there was one question about who can apply for this on behalf of the building owner. Can you speak a little bit to who's kind of who can represent the building owner to participate in the program?
Yeah, that's a really great question. And we've been having other folks have asked us as well, because we're dealing with, there's a property owner, there's a property manager, there's a facilities person, there could be a sustainability person. So for me personally, so when we have the application, I want the person who actually has authority to sign off on this, to make decisions, to sign the application. But we can work with whomever in the building is able to kind of facilitate this process. So I know that can get really tricky with some folks, and I leave that up to the property folks that are in the building to decide who those people should be. But we honestly just need someone who has authority to sign, and then we need somebody to be the point of contact for us to facilitate between the auditor, ourselves, and whoever actually makes the decisions in terms of the measures installation, giving access to folks and things like that.
Great.
All right. Well, if there are no other questions, I'm going to pass it along to Gary from the Green Bank. He's going to be talking about financing. So with that, Gary, take it away.
Thanks, Christian, and hi to everyone, and happy to be here to talk about this exciting new initiative and partnership. So thanks to the DOEE team and the DCSEU team for all of your work. I have the exciting role to talk to you about financing that will be available to support this work. I know that there's a lot of things being thrown at people here today, a lot to absorb, and you're probably thinking, how am I going to pay for all of this? And that's why we're here. DC Green Bank was founded in 2018, and our operations started up last April. So our work has started during the pandemic, but we have hit the ground running and with an all virtual operation, and we have dedicated funds available for pre-development loans and construction loans to help your buildings meet BEPS. And so we're really excited to be working with you on that. We are working to develop unique and specific projects for these buildings. And what we're going to be able to do is, as some of the early stage audits come in, that Christian and others have talked about, we should be able to use that information to tailor products for the needs that emerge for this building set. Beyond the Retrofit Accelerator, and as Christian was talking about, we also are able to support buildings that don't qualify for this particular program, but we have pre-development loans, construction loans, permanent financing available for all sorts of sustainability needs. So if you own multiple buildings and some qualify and some don't, we still want to be able to talk to you about it. So you can visit us at dcgreenbank.com to learn more about our offerings. You can reach out to me at gdecker@dcgreenbank.com and visit us on social media. But as I said, we're extremely excited to be a part of this partnership, to be one of the last pieces in the chain that you've seen for the accelerator. Because when it comes time to decide what to do, we have pre-development financing, and then to make the big decisions and invest. We're ready to support you and help you put your mind at ease that there will be affordable financing available for you to meet BEPS. So happy to answer any questions that people may have at this early stage, but we are developing new products for this accelerator specifically.
Thank you so much, Gary. We are going to pause right now as we're going to get everybody who's on the call into one of 3 breakout rooms where you'll be able to ask some of the questions. I know I saw some questions come in through the chat. We will try to get those addressed in your breakout rooms. If for some reason your question is not addressed, either today in your breakout rooms or in general, we will be, we've recorded this, so we have your questions, and somebody from DCSEU, DOE, and or DC Green Bank will be following up with you to make sure we answer your question. So just bear with us for a moment as we open up the breakout rooms. Everybody should go into one of 3 breakout rooms led by DCSEU and DOE staff. And at the conclusion of the breakout room, that will be the conclusion of the webinar, so we will not be bringing people back. So on behalf of DOE, DCSEU, and the DC Green Bank, we just want to say thank you very much for coming to the webinar today. And we hope you have very productive conversations in your breakout rooms. And we look forward to working with you on the Retrofit Accelerator in the coming weeks and months.